everybody, it's Aaron back from Screen Stars here once again to do another review for Geek Legion of Doom. And today I'm reviewing something a little bit different for the channel. It's a documentary called My Hero's Shadow. Now, what is this about? Well, in the wake of the Tonya movie and, you know, the all the attention that movie's getting, all the Oscar nominations, etc., this documentary is actually the flip side to that movie, and it focuses on a guy called Shane Stant and his sister. Now, if that name sounds familiar, especially to those in the US, that is the guy who actually committed the attack on Nancy Kerrigan in 1994 with the baton, who injured her. And this focuses on his life, what led up to the attack and beyond, and his sister's life, who was 3 years old at the time of the attack, and at that point in her life had never actually met him. So it was a really fascinating documentary, this, and I like a really good documentary, and this comes under that category. Really fascinating, well-made documentary that was informative, because for me, I'm from the UK, so whereas I was aware at the time of the Nancy Kerrigan attack, and it was big news in the US and stuff, it did make headlines over here in the UK, but once it died down, that was it. So I'm sure it's much more embedded in American culture and news media outlets and stuff than it is over here. So there are elements of this documentary that were completely news to me, and I found it absolutely fascinating to learn more about this guy, Shane Stant, who committed the attack, and his sister Maile, who saw him and sees him as her hero, and how somebody who can be perceived in the media as being so evil and described as a hitman and a thug and all this kind of stuff, that he actually has he had this other side to him that was fascinating to watch. Now, don't get me wrong, this documentary doesn't present him as a saint at all. It doesn't hold back. It's very honest about what happened, why he did it, and he's very open about why he did it, and essentially it comes down to money. You know, at that point in his life, he was, you know, he was a very broken individual, and he was basically doing things like that for money. So to him, it was just a job, nothing personal. And this film focuses very heavily on his childhood and his childhood and his sister's childhood, Maile, and their seriously abusive father, and who sounded to be a horrific individual, and there was systematic abuse of him and his sister, psychological and physical, certainly physical with him when he was growing up, and he was left pretty broken by the end of all this. So this is kind of what led him up to the person he became, to the attack. But after he was released from prison, this documentary explains, I think he got 18 months in prison. After he was released, he came to live with his sister and his stepmother, because his father had become poorly and got cancer. And that's when his sister finally got to meet him, and he was a huge father figure in her life, and taught her all her morals, and was very supportive, and was everything, if you like, a big brother and a father should be. And if you actually, when you watch this documentary and you see the person that she has become, a really quite wonderful person, it would appear, as the documentary presents her, you know, who's really connected to her spiritual side, and it seems a very special and lovely individual. And she wants to explore, because she's never really gone in depth with it with her brother, what led him to that. So she's not seen him for a couple of years, so they meet up together and they discuss it all, and you see all this on camera. They go through everything, they talk about their abusive upbringing by the father, and then it like feeds in news footage from 1994, you know, the Nancy Kerrigan thing. And like I say, it doesn't hold back. It doesn't present him as something he isn't. He's very honest about that. But what it actually does really well is it shows different sides of people and how people can change. And I found it to be a really powerful documentary, this. Really quite emotional at times, quite elevating. It made you feel emotional when you watched it, and I have to say, a very, very impressive documentary. I have to give this an 8 out of 10. I like a good documentary, and this does it really, really well, and it presents both sides of the story. And when this is released, because it's in post-production right now, you must watch it.